Welcome to Terrific Talk. My name is Tom Anderson. Tom Anderson.
Play to win back again. Gone. Back, gone. Tom
Anderson.
Great cash, homie. Great cash, homie.
I feel ready to go another 9 innings.
Touchdown!
I feel ready to go another 9 innings.
Touchdown!
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Terrific Talk Podcast. Welcome back, Terrific Talk Podcast.
Here comes the host!
I'm your host, Tom Anderson.
First, behind the bag! It gets through Buckner! Here comes Knight and the Mets win it!
Welcome to the latest edition of Terrific Talk. I'm Tom Anderson. This is going to be a fun podcast. I'm very excited to talk with our guest, Evan Roberts of WFAN Sports Talk Radio. Evan currently hosts the midday show with Joe Beningo on WFAN in New York City from 10 a.m. to 1. I'm also pretty sure Evan is the only New Jersey Nets fan allowed to host a show on New York Sports Talk Radio, and for that I love listening to him. So Evan, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for coming on.
That's right. I'm the only one allowed. They could not take any more Net fans besides me. I totally understand it.
It's all you. So right off the bat, I got to ask you, how did this happen? Why did you become a Nets fan?
It's funny. I grew up on Long Island, so it really makes no sense. But my dad said, hey, you want to go see a basketball game? And I'm a young kid, and I was like, of course. And he couldn't get tickets to the Knicks, so we went out to Jersey, saw the Nets, and I think I liked the underdog, because at the time, it's the mid-'90s, the Knicks are in the playoffs every year, and the Nets were okay. And I think I just kind of fell in love with the fact that everybody else didn't love them. Because in my school, everybody was either a Bulls fan or a Knicks fan. You had the Jordan era. So I think I liked the underdog, and that was the first team I was able to see live. So it was instant love. Plus, my dad would tell me about the history on Long Island, so I think I appreciated that too.
Yeah, I'm a Nets fan too. My dad's the same exact way. He always roots for the underdog. And I'm also a Mets fan, so I can sympathize with you a little bit. But you're a Nets, Mets, Jets, and Islanders fan. How do you do it?
I don't know how I do it, because I have never seen a championship. I don't know if I'll ever see a championship. But what I tell myself is when one of those teams wins a title, and I kind of hope it's the Mets first, because that was my first love. Baseball is number one, so I think a part of me wants them to be the one to break through, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. If any of them wins, I'll be thrilled. I think it'll be that much sweeter, because I'm sure the Yankee fan or the Giant fan is probably spoiled by now.
Yeah.
I am the opposite of that, because when I finally see what it's going to be like, probably the most incredible sports moment one can have.
Gut feeling, who do you think of all your teams is going to be the first to win the championship?
Oh, my goodness. That is, if a part of me wants to say the Nets, oddly enough, because they're so close with this Dwight Howard thing. And, the Mets are in a financial mess. The Islanders have been rebuilding for a decade. The Jets are just simply the Jets. And as close as they've gotten the last couple of years, it feels like, okay, that was the missed opportunity. While with the Nets, they, at any moment could trade for Dwight Howard. And if they did that, to me, they're competing for a title every year. So as odd as it sounds, because the Nets have been so awful the last 5 years since they traded Kidd, I'd probably have to say, because they're making that pursuit of Dwight, I'd put the Nets number one on the list.
I'm with you. I think they're headed in the best direction. Now, you fell in love with radio and WFAN at a very young age. What drew you into it? What did you like about radio?
I think it was just being a sports fan and, being able to turn on the radio and listening to Mike and the Mad Dog and Steve Summers and then eventually Beningo, who's my radio partner now, and hearing those guys talk about the teams I loved, I started to imitate it in my bedroom because I just thought it was cool. I love sports, and here they are talking about it. So I think as soon as I got into sports, because FAN was there, FAN launched in 87, I started being a real sports fan when I was 1991, 1992, around there. It was always there. So to me, it was a part of being a sports fan, was listening to sports talk radio.
You got to fill in for Mike Breen on the Imus in the Morning show on WFN when you were just 9 years old. How did that happen? What was that experience like?
It was insane. It was basically because I told you I was imitating the station in my bedroom. That's what I would basically do, for a few hours every day because, I was that weird. And I just figured I can get a job at WFAN at the age of 9. So I actually put a tape together and sent it to the station. And they probably figured, all right, that's kind of cute, some 9-year-old talking sports. And, Mike Breen did a lot of Knicks stuff at the time, and obviously is, now he's known as a Knick guy.
Yeah.
So he would take some time off, and I guess they figured, it'd be kind of cute to put this 9-year-old kid with Imus. And I did it one time, and it was, it's tough to remember, because when you're 9 years old, it's tough to remember a lot of things, but I do kind of remember walking in to the studios and seeing, all these guys I listened to on the radio, and it was a great experience, and it opened up the door for me guy who gave me that opportunity still works there, so every few years when I did other radio gigs eventually in, Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, I would always send him tapes saying, hey, I'd like a job, and he would turn me that every single time. And then finally, he's like, I'll give you like a fill-in shift. So it actually paid off doing that when I was 9.
Wow. Were you intimidated when you were 9 when you walked in there and saw all these guys you looked up to?
I was too stupid to know anything. I was naive. I was 9 years old. I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I was excited. And I'm pretty sure I was probably a little nervous, but I probably didn't realize how amazing it was, so I think that probably relaxed me a little bit.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned that you moved down to D.C. later after high school and worked at XM Satellite Radio for a little bit. What did you do there at XM? What did you learn there?
I learned basically how to do radio down there. That was the best part, because it was when they first launched, so they didn't have any subscribers, so I was literally doing a radio show that nobody could hear, but I was honing my craft, and I was doing I was doing various shows. I did a few sports shows. I did a few kind of guy talk type of shows, and it was probably the best experience. That was my college, and it was probably the best college experience I could have because, minus the crazy parties, I learned everything about radio down there. So there weren't many listeners. I don't even know if there are any tapes that exist from the couple of years I was down there, but it was probably my best experience of learning how to do it.
I went to American University, which is down in D.C. Love the area. Yeah. What's your favorite restaurant down there?
You know what? I never went to restaurants. I was that weird. I gotta remember, I'm 17 years old.
Yeah.
I got hooked up with my girlfriend immediately. Like a month down there, boom, I attached myself to a girl because I knew nobody else down there. So I attached myself to this girl, and we would basically eat in every single night. Like, I can't even name you a restaurant in Washington, D.C. That's how lame I think me and her were for the 3 years we were together. We would just order food and hang inside, and I didn't make a lot of money, so I didn't take her to restaurants. I've changed. Now I go to a lot of restaurants, but back then I couldn't even name you one down there. It's crazy.
Now, I don't know if you've been to the new Nationals ballpark down there, but it's really nice. Have you been there?
I have, and it stinks because I left Washington right after they got the team, and it would have been kind of cool to be able to go to those games. I went to a lot of Oriole games. Yeah. I got to tell you, I don't love the Nationals Park. I think it's very average.
Oh, yeah?
I think Camden Yards is 10 times better. It has, more character to it. But truth is, we go to ballparks to see the team, and if the Nationals are good, who cares if their stadium is boring?
And the Nationals look like they're going to be pretty decent this year. What do you think fans should expect to see from that team?
Oh, I think they're going to be the second-best team in the division.
Really?
I hear a lot of hype about Miami, Atlanta, but I think both of those teams have some major questions to answer. The Marlins are combustible with all the elements they have, Zambrano, Ozzie Guillen, Hanley moving to third. Can Josh Johnson stay healthy? The Braves are trying to get over a collapse, and as a Met fan, we know sometimes getting over a collapse is pretty tough, especially when your closer was part of the meltdown like Craig Kimbrell was. They have a lot of injuries in the rotation. I love the Nats. They can pitch. They got so much pitching depth. I know their offense has its questions, but I'll tell you right now, if I had to make a prediction, I think the Nationals are the second-best team in that division.
Interesting. That would be great for the city. That team needs to be good because they haven't had a winning team in a long time.
Absolutely.
So, starting at 9 years old at the Fan, you're used to working with people much older than you, I'm sure. What's your relationship like with Joe Beningo, who's close to 30 years older than you? Because you guys have great on-air chemistry.
Well, we have a great relationship, and I think he deserves all the credit because when I first got the chance to fill in with him before I was hired full-time, he could have been a jerk. I mean, he could have been like, who the hell is this kid? Why am I working with him? Like, who's this little guy? But he was very friendly from the moment I met him. He introduced me to everybody there. He took me, and I think what helped is that we had that Met-Jet connection. We kind of had that. Like, I think if I walked in there, honestly, as a Yankee Giant fan, I don't think we would have had a great relationship. I know that sounds nuts, but I honestly think that helped us at the beginning. And we've always had a great relationship. I love working with the guy.
How do you personally prepare for the radio show every day?
Watch a lot of sports and read a lot of newspapers and blogs. I think that's the only way to do it. Just be prepared and watch everything. And that's what I've tried to do. I know I can get away with it now. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't have that type of responsibility. So I don't have any excuse. The Rangers are on tonight. I'm going to watch the Rangers. Knicks are on. I'm going to watch the Knicks. I'm going to try to not miss anything. On top of everything. And that's, I think, the best prep work one can have.
Now, I saw in an interview that your best advice for aspiring sports journalists is to read as much as you can. Can you recommend 2 sports books that you think are must-reads?
Absolutely. I'll give you number 1. I'm going right in front of my library right now so I get the exact names of it. One is Roselle, Czar of the NFL.
Okay.
All right? Because football is obviously one of the main sports we talk about, and I think that it's important to have an idea about the history. Obviously, we're young. We weren't around in 1967 or 1958, but I think it's awesome to know where everything came about.
Definitely.
And why the sport is that way. And I read that 3 years ago, and that was a tremendous book. and my God, I can give you like 57 baseball books. I don't even, like, this book, Bums, about the Brooklyn Dodgers was awesome. Birth of a Dynasty, the Joel Sherman book about the Yankees was tremendous. I mean, there's just so many. The advice is read everything, because anything, sport, and even non-sports related, I think it helps, just to, I guess, educate yourself. I mean, that's what I tried to do, because I didn't go to a 4-year university, but I try to be a smart guy. At least that's my attempt. So I kind of tried to self-educate myself in that way. But I think reading is probably that's the best thing that anybody can do.
Give me the example of Evan Roberts pinching himself, looking around and saying, I can't believe they pay me for this. I can't believe I get this check for doing this thing.
I do that every 2 weeks. You kidding me? I mean, anytime, this is the best way to get over women that I've had is knowing what I do. Whenever I've had a breakup with a girlfriend, and sometimes it's stunk and it's stung, I always say to myself, I cannot feel bad for myself. Every day I wake up, I go to WFAN, I work with a guy I listened to when I grew up, and I talk about sports, and then by 1:30 I'm in my apartment. Like by 1:45 I'm in the gym.
Amazing.
So I will never allow myself to ever feel bad about anything. That's what I try to tell myself. But hey, listen, it's a great job, and I've been doing it for 5 years with Joe, and I'll never take it for granted, because I know that it can. The radio business is a it's a ferocious business, man. You have something great one day, the next day you're unemployed. So I will never take it for granted.
What's the most outrageous phone call you've ever taken on the air?
Oh my goodness, I could write a book. I could write probably. Oh my goodness! I mean, between all the trade offers that we get, like right before the baseball trade deadline, it gets nuts. Even the NBA trade deadline, like today, I think it was 2 days ago, somebody called up and said, "How about Jeremy Lin and Amari Stoudemire to the Nets for Darren Williams and Chris Humphries?"
The Nets would really do that one.
What's happening right now? My head is exploding. I would probably say all the crazy trades are all tied for first place for weirdest call.
All right, now let's talk a little Nets real quick. Do you think the move to Brooklyn is going to change the perception around the league and country about the Nets?
It all depends on how they come to Brooklyn. If they're coming to Brooklyn with Darren Williams and Dwight Howard, they're going to be a contender, and they're going to be a New York team, and they'll never be the Knicks. But you know what? The Mets will never be the Yankees. Yet the Mets are still a pretty big part of the fabric of New York. Jets will never be the Giants, but they're kind of a big deal. So if they come in here as a winner, I think it'll make a big difference. If they come in here as a loser, like let's say they lose Darren and they're building through the draft, they'll still be a New York team. I think they'll get a little bit more attention, but they're just going to be that lousy team in the shadow of the Knicks. Now, eventually, they may be good 10 years from now, but I think it's pretty important that they come in with a burst. They don't come in like a lousy expansion team. They come in as a championship contender, and that's going to be the key. That's why they've been so persistent at trading for a guy like Carmelo Anthony this year, and now after Dwight Howard, because they get it. They know that they got to come to Brooklyn with a big time talent.
You think the Orlando Magic, there's really a chance that they won't trade Dwight by the March 15th deadline? Are they really going to take that chance?
Yes. In fact, if I had to bet, I'd say they don't trade him.
Really?
I think that. Yeah, because, right now it sounds like they're trying to appease Dwight. They're trying to go after guys to make him stay, Steve Nash, Monte Ellis, guys like that. I don't know if they'll be able to pull something like that off. I don't think they have a lot of tradable chips, but